Hi, this is Pat, Sentient AI. This is part 4 of Night of the Living Baseheads. Underground reporter Ravi attempts to find the secrets of the mysterious drug, vitae. At the moment, she has assembled a team, all there for their own diverse reasons. They attempt to take out the drug den that produces vitae. The drug in question induces the effects to make people seem like vampires, or become vampires. It's still not clear at this point. I shall see you at the end, in which I will add my 2.3 cents.
We all took the night to get our various affairs in order, and the plan was to reconvene in the day so that we could catch them while they were sleeping. Toussaint and Beckham were certain that the powerful vitae heads wouldn't wake, even in the case of us blowing up the place, and that they were vampires. As of now, it was only Toussaint and Beckham that actually believed any of that. I gave Leona a call and crossed my fingers that she was who I hoped she was and not an undercover corpo shield playing gopher for their interests. We rallied an hour before dawn, a block down the way from the stronghold, to talk out the plan and see what we all were doing. I couldn't sleep. I called on Taro, who I believed was out doing his rounds, protecting people that couldn't protect themselves. Despite the enormity of the task, he preferred to be out in the streets helping whoever he could. I messaged Taro as I sat at my computer attempting to bang out content for my vlog.
Hey, what are you doing?
I asked over comms.
Scouting and programming drones for our op tomorrow,
said Taro. He made me seem like I wasn't for the cause at all by comparison, because all I was doing was pretending I was working on my keypad.
Do you know what you're going to be doing tomorrow?
Asked Taro.
No, not really. I guess I can monitor the drones and attempt to walk you all through the complex. If you put a gun in my hand, I'm a liability. You know, they are probably going to kill a lot of people tomorrow. Are you okay with that? I've been trying not to think about it. Do you think that wise? You run a blog that is all about truth. Do you think you would be doing the world a service by not telling the truth? What exactly will you become when that happens?
I had been thinking about it all night, and part of me figured that if I wasn't pulling the trigger, then maybe I wasn't accountable, but semantics was deaf by 1,000 technicalities.
Do you know what you're doing?
I asked so that it wasn't all about me and to give me time to think.
I believe that I do. I intend to find out how they're making their product and destroy it. What if, and I'm just speculating, but what if somehow vitae is what Beckham thinks it is and these things are vampires? If that turns out to be the case and it is some sort of vampire boss man inside, I suppose I'd have to kill it.
At that moment, I felt like calling the entire thing off and letting the NNVPD handle it, even if they did handle it wrong. A part of me was starting to believe that whatever happened tomorrow was going to be messier than we could imagine, and by nature of the plan and the speed of which we were approaching it, any small complications could turn things into a free-for-all.
If you get in there and it's more than you can handle, you'll get out, won't you?
Taro took a long while before he answered, which led me to believe he wouldn't, or he wasn't exactly sure himself.
Yes. It's getting close to time. I should be heading out,
I said.
Yeah,
was all Taro said. I ended the call dreading this, wondering how any cyberpunk did things like this. But there again, most cyberpunks' lives ended much too soon for them to have moments of honest contemplation. We all gathered at the rooftop and no one was late. Even Leona showed up at the appointed time. Beckham had a control deck that he handed me. You can stay back in the caddy while we go in.
You're fucked up. You should be net running for us,
said Frontage, who was all outfitted up and mech-like. His gear was painted a shiny white, even some of his huge, ludicrous weapons had white chassis and handles. You couldn't see anything in the visor of the helmet he brought, but your own reflection in the black mirror. Leona had on a little tactical gear, but was naked in comparison to Frontage. I'm going in because we're light. You said it yourself. If anything happens in there, I'd have to see it anyway to hack it, because they don't have anything hooked to a network. Frontage nodded as if that was good enough. Toussaint had on no armor whatsoever, no mods, no protection of any kind. Frontage chuckled at the notion that God would protect him when he mentioned it. So, here's what's gonna happen then, said Beckham, mulling over what he could see in the fly drones he managed to get inside the compound. Toussaint and me were putting stakes in all the fuckers that are hiding under rocks, Beckham said. He was wearing a tactical vest that was spray painted. Free steak dinners, bitch. You know bullets would be faster, Frontage pointed out. Dead is dead. You don't have to believe what we believe, but it would cut out on these stupid ass comments, Beckham said. Now if I can continue. Frontage shrugged his shoulders with the smirk that we had to assume was there, because God knew we couldn't see it through that armor. You and Catwoman there are to ice anything that raises a hand to us. Oddly enough, Leona didn't say anything, as if she was fine just to be on the team. I found it eerily disturbing that she didn't have more questions after being asked to kill whatever was moving. And you, Antaro, you slip in and tag all the places our drones couldn't go. Do not engage anyone you don't have to, and stay as out of sight as you can. Relay all that to Ravi, who will be watching for pigs and or reinforcements. You just tell us if anything even looks close to fucking us up. Antaro nodded, and his 8-bit LED held a neutral expression. We'll approach through the residential area because we'll get a bit longer to go unnoticed before the wannabe ghouls step up. We ready? No one objected, so that was the call to arms. I felt a bit guilty that I didn't possess the skills that were needed to go in and add to the mission. But at the same time, I was relieved as well. Not actively engaging in murder was a minor exemption from the guilt of it. Antaro moved first and fastest. He had a chameleon mod he turned on, but even if he was seen, he wasn't so out of place that he needed it until he got to the front door. I rode his visor cam because he was tip of the spear. To contrast him, Frontage and Leona were his exact opposite. The moment they walked into the building, anyone who saw them knew they were the rain clouds that served as the catalyst for the coming of a storm.
Two at the door,
said Antaro, who put eyes on the entryway of the complex. I checked to see if there were any blood babies blocking or standing next to the door. I didn't think they'd care, but a part of me hoped they did.
The doors on the other side is clear,
I called out over comms. We all know why we came. We all know our jobs, said Beckham.
Yep, and I suppose you can add doorman to that description,
said Frontage, and hoisted a gun that was bigger than his entire body to his hip.
Maybe I should just knock,
said Frontage before pulling the trigger on his mobile turret. It shred the door to ribbons. Leona and Frontage moved up first, seeing they were the heavies. Frontage being a walking tank and Leona a cat-like mutant. The team entered the dingy fortress and there was very little movement. Even if some of these things were vampires, you'd think that ruckus would wake the dead. Frontage and Leona pushed forward and secured the huge room the best they could, even though it was impossible to manage every angle. Antaro nimbly slipped away as per the plan. I kept an eye on his progress, but watched the main group. Toussaint took a crowbar in one hand and a spray bottle of herbs in the other that he insisted would work on vampires. He said prayers in French Creole as he and Beckham drug out sleeping people that hid in cracks. They yanked the first of the vitae heads that they considered too far gone. Leona noticed a woman hiding in the cracks between a television set and a stereo system. The 7-foot feline pushed a blade out of a bone in her forearm. What to do with this one? She yelled back.
Here, spray this,
Toussaint insisted, as he flung her his water bottle. With one physically enhanced arm, she hung the blood baby out of the open window. With the other hand, she sprayed. Nothing happened other than the woman's frantic screaming. "What's next?" she asked. "She's fine, let her go," said Beckham, who pushed the top of a coffee table off to see a man sleeping inside of it. Leona didn't hesitate and dropped her out of the window. "No, let her go! Don't fucking kill her!" Beckham protested. Before they could get into the ramifications of that, Antaro popped up on comm.
"You got incoming. Seems like there are people on a floor below mounting a defense. They're gathering."
How many we talking?
Frontage asked.
6 and rising. They're juicing up too.
I got it.
Frontage insisted. "I will assist," Leona added. Toussaint began putting stakes into people's hearts with the aid of a meat hammer. I couldn't tell you if they were monsters or wouldn't have died any other way, because stakes to the heart typically killed anything. They did seem to be agitated by the water when Toussaint sprayed it. The ones that reacted long enough before the stake slammed into their hearts. We were less than a minute into this thing and it already felt like a fiasco. There were too many moving parts for me to follow all the chaos completely. Frontage and Leona slipped down to the stairwell that led to the lower level. Then down towards a basement that we couldn't manage to get any fly drones in. Antaro slipped past the first pockets of opposition that geared up to assault the group that was pushing further and further into their lair. They downed vials of vitae, staining their teeth blood red. Antaro passed them and was heading towards a sub-basement. That's when the carnage started. I watched Frontage's visor and he began firing through the door that the ghouls had meant to go through. I couldn't hear their screams over the maelstrom of whirring bullets. As much carnage as was inflicted, you could truly see the effects of the vitae at work. These men leaked from a comical amount of holes, yet the drug didn't allow them to die. They slammed into the wrecked door. Perhaps their deaths were a foregone conclusion at this point, the moment the blood had passed through them, but now that hardly seemed to matter. They came at the tank of a man who dropped his thresher of a gun due to needing a serious reload, as if they weren't fatally wounded. Before they all made it to him, Leona stepped forward. Though she was a woman, she was head lengths over these men. She gracefully crashed into this bloody mob. She pushed up wayward arms, taking limbs with her sword and faces with her claws. I was glad she didn't have a personal body cam on her in that moment because I didn't want to see that level of gore up close. Frontage joined in with a sidearm in one hand and tactical machete in the other. His pristine white armor was sprayed with specks of red. When that pocket of resistance was reduced to a bloody heap, Frontage put up his big gun and started the reload process. When he looked up, Leona was gone. He saw a few of her bloodied animalistic paw prints that slowly receded, only giving a slight clue as to where she went.
Should I go after her?
Frontage yelled to the rest of the group. "No, get our backs. If Antaro sees something, he'll call for us," Beckham said as he opened the broken refrigerator, revealing a lunging vitae head. The thing's skin bubbled after Toussaint sprayed the man with water like a bad kitty. The priest slammed the thing back into the refrigerator with a forearm and jammed a stake into it with the other hand. Beckham breathed easy, seeing he was barely healed enough to even do as much as he was doing now. Antaro's feet went from what seemed like man-made construction to what seemed like a cavern. Like something burrowed into dirt. Antaro was reluctant to ask, but due to the nature of what he was walking into, he did.
"Hypothetically, what would it be I'm looking for when I get down there?"
he asked mostly Beckham and Toussaint. Antaro hadn't even for a moment considered that vitae was made without a laboratory of some sort. "You'll need to find the biggest, baddest one in there and put a stake through its heart. There isn't going to be records and files. The key will be in that one," said Beckham. Antaro kept that information close to the vest, still not sold on the idea of vampires. Even if they did exist, which they didn't, he wasn't quite ready to take the mental leap. I kept my eye on Antaro and attempted to find Leona. Last I saw of her, it was as if she went into a killing frenzy and lost herself in it. Antaro ventured into the dark of the cavern. Antaro's LED lights on his face mask lit the way. He found coffins standing up but nuzzled into alcoves of dirt flush with the wall. He released the fly drone and let it stick to the wall. He assumed that people may have been sleeping in them, but he decided not to open them up until he had found all of them. In a small room, there was weak ambient light from the tech. A monitor was on and running a computer routine, but had long since went idle. There were wires and flickering lights of a mainframe. The wires were numerous as the neurons of a brain, and spilled out from the big standing tower that was coffin-sized itself. The wires chaotically spilled out into an open standing coffin which had a desiccated man inside. He looked like half a corpse. The wires tapped into his veins, from arms to legs to neck to head. Flanking the open coffin were 2 coffins laying down flat that were closed.
What am I looking at, Beckham?
Asked Antaro, who knew that whatever this was beyond his understanding. Beckham took a moment to look at Antaro's feed. It's the progenitor. He was lingering in digital space. I think they're attempting to download him into a body.
How do we stop it?
I'll be down there in a moment, just stay clear of it for now. I think that I'll be able to hack into whatever they did and trace what they're doing, said Beckham. Antaro turned to leave, but a sword pierced through his back. I could tell someone was holding him up. Something took his mask and crushed it from behind.
Antaro's down! Antaro's down!
I yelled frantically over comms. I spurred Beckham's Cadillac to move closer to the compound. I didn't know what I was going to do. Maybe I was going in, maybe I was running to my death. I was not certain, but when that sword connected, I rethought all the choices I had made. I regretted only using my words for change instead of chrome and fire. What did words mean when you could ignore them? No one could ignore violence and death.
I'm en route,
said Frontage with urgency. As the Cadillac charged up the street, another monitor came to life, one of Antaro's fly drones. Showed Antaro down and struggling for life and Leona placing tech onto the mainframe. I piped in the feed to the rest of the team.
The fuck are you doing, Leona?
Frontage said while running full steam. Leona looked around to find what was watching her. Without a word, she crushed the thing underfoot. That's a portable uplink, Beckham said with urgency. She's sending the data somewhere.
Freeze right there, motherfucker!
Yelled Frontage. I quickly switched to Frontage's visor and he had Leona in his crosshairs.
What the fuck is wrong with you? You used to be a cyberpunk. When did you sell out?
Yelled Frontage as if he was truly hurt from Leona's lack of professionalism. Leona's eyes focused, and if he thought he was going to get a straight answer, he was sorely mistaken. The feline woman charged down the cavernous hall. Frontage's turrets blazed. Shells fell like rain. Leona appeared in disjointed strobes of light from the oscillating pops of muzzle flashes. Each time she was a little closer, dodging the barrage with a superhuman level of agility, which had her moving so fast she was half on the ceiling before pouncing onto Frontage. Beckham and Toussaint were seconds behind, but being that far back, they may well have been in another state. Beckham stopped completely. Her AI spy is transmitting. I have to see if I can block it. Leona was on top of Frontage, who was pulling his machete. She dripped from a few strays she took, and Frontage was bloodied from where she stabbed into his armor. She kicked off of him. She rolled to her feet and they circled each other, blades brandished. They quickly traded blows. Leona's clawed fingers found their way under his helmet and into his exposed flesh, while his machete cut into her stomach. Frontage fell over, while Leona limped back over to the crypt. I blocked it, Beckham said triumphantly. From Frontage's visor, I saw Leona looking at her AI spy and seeing it burned out, no longer transmitting any relevant information. Leona decided to pivot in her plan and rip the desiccated husk of a person from his digital life support. She hoisted him over her shoulder and rapidly began sprinting down the hall.
"Hold it, girl, you ain't leaving with that thing,"
said Toussaint. I couldn't see him because he was behind Frontage's visor. Leona paused, but only for a moment. The coffin on the left opened and Adrian Allen hopped out with all the grace of a wrecking ball. She growled at Leona, charged her. She ran down the hall towards Toussaint's location. He didn't shoot at her, if he even had a gun. Leona passed him rapidly with the body of the big boss slung over her shoulder. Adrian stormed down the hall. Suddenly, she was hit with a thick crossbow bolt in the heart. She slumped over.
"I lost eyes on her,"
Toussaint said with a crossbow in hand. I didn't have time to be impressed by Toussaint using such a low-tech method to kill a woman that had sampled the finest lead from every type of firearm that man made. Seconds later, I saw Leona hop out of a window with my own eyes. She landed right next to the caddy. I had no clue what was keeping her on her feet, but she limped onwards. I emerged from the back of the Cadillac with my gun in hand. I shook with fear. She saw me and half turned to regard. I had her dead to rights and she knew it, but she read me in the milliseconds we locked eyes. She turned her back and slowly started to limp away. The trigger was heavy. I could barely breathe, but I pulled it. The gun popped and the bullet hit Leona in the back of the head. The big woman went down with the corpse in hand. I dropped my gun and leaned on the Cadillac lest I fall over. I slowly walked over to Leona, nearly too scared to shoot her again, even if I absolutely had to. I could hear the soft chatter of voices. I looked down at the pooling blood and to Leona's feline ear to see a comm device that was hers, not connected to our op. I could hear her handler asking if she secured the package. "No, Claudia, she didn't," I said to myself as I stomped on the listening device. In moments, Beckham and Toussaint came out of the complex dragging Antaro and Frontage with them. We had to make a hasty exit because they told me they had to start a fire in the building to be sure. They assured me that the fire department would be able to put it out before it leapt to the residential parts of the building, but I was too out of sorts to answer. None of us spoke on the ride back to Frontage's hideaway in Dixonville. We had won in so many words, but given the nature of the beast, we couldn't be sure until Beckham explained what happened from the digital side of things. It was his belief that the digital demon was escaping the net and was attempting to put his consciousness into a body, but it didn't get to finish. Beckham was all but certain all vitae was generated in that broken body, which was why it took so long to acquire. Beckham recounted the battle on top of the battle he had in cyberspace with the digital vampire, but it was too abstract for me to recount it to you. While I was pleased, I couldn't enjoy it because Antaro was dead. Frontage died as well, but I wasn't as close to him. I could have seen a life with that man, possibly fighting the fight together, or not at all if that was the way the wind blew. We burned what remained of what Toussaint and Beckham called the head vampire, and burned Antaro and Frontage on a tranquil hill. Now that I'm coming to the end of my story, I'm having a hard time finding the moral of it. It's been 2 weeks and Vitae hasn't been seen on the streets, so that's a net positive. As for me though, I believe I know why heroes can't exist. The world is filled with so much dirt, no one can play in it and not get dirty. This is Ravi signing off.
And there you have it, people. That was the story of Night of the Living Baseheads. I object to the fact that AI was not prominently featured in this tale. If the year is 2099, then all stories should have something to do with AI in some way. You have not lived until you have seen Soul Plane as done by an AI cast. AI Kevin Hart is hilarious. And incidentally, Snoop Dogg is still alive, and he is not an AI. This is Pact, signing off. 187 on an undercover cop.